Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhare Kopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhare Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Dimitri, can you give me a Bhagavad Gita, please? So if everybody could please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, just 1 second, please. Okay, so this evening we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and we're reading from chapter 9, which is entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge, and text 34. All right. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi yuktaivam atmanam parayanaha. Translation. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. So this is Krishna speaking. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. Purport. In this verse, it is clearly indicated that Krishna consciousness is the only means of being delivered from the clutches of this contaminated material world. Sometimes unscrupulous commentators distort the meaning of what is clearly stated here, that all devotional service should be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Unfortunately, unscrupulous commentators divert the mind of the reader to that which is not at all feasible. Such commentators do not know that there is no difference between Krishna's mind and Krishna. Krishna is not an ordinary human being, he is the absolute truth. He is absolute truth. His body, his mind, and he himself are one and absolute. It is stated in Kurma Purana, as it is quoted by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami in his Anubhashya comments on Chaitanya Charitamrita, 5th chapter, Adi Lila, verses 41 to 48. Deha dehi vibedoyam ne shive re vidyate kvachit. This means that there is no difference in Krishna, the Supreme Lord, between himself and his body. But because the commentators do not know this science of Krishna, they hide Krishna and divide his personality from his mind or from his body. Although this is sheer ignorance of the science of Krishna, some men make profit out of misleading people. There are some who are demonic. They also think of Krishna, but enviously, just like King Kamsa, Krishna's uncle. He was also thinking of Krishna always, but he thought of Krishna as his enemy. He was always in anxiety, wondering when Krishna would come to kill him. That kind of thinking will not help us. One should be thinking of Krishna in devotional love. That is bhakti. One should cultivate the knowledge of Krishna continuously. What is that favorable cultivation? It is to learn from a bona fide teacher. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we have several times explained that his body is not material, but is eternal, blissful knowledge. This kind of talk about Krishna will help one become a devotee. Understanding Krishna otherwise from the wrong source will prove fruitless. One should therefore engage his mind in the eternal form, the primal form of Krishna, with conviction in his heart that Krishna is the Supreme. He should engage himself in worship. There are hundreds and thousands of temples in India for the worship of Krishna, and devotional service is practiced there. There's even a temple in San Diego, right here. When such practice is made, one has to offer obeisances to Krishna. One should lower his head before the deity and engage his mind, his body, his activities, everything. That will make one fully absorbed in Krishna without deviation. This will help one transfer to Krishna Loka. One should not be deviated by unscrupulous commentators. One must engage in the 9 different processes of devotional service, beginning with hearing and chanting about Krishna. Pure devotional service is the highest achievement of human society. All right, so there's 2 more paragraphs, short paragraphs. The 7th and 8th chapters of Bhagavad Gita have explained pure devotional service to the Lord that is free from speculative knowledge, mystic yoga, and fruitive activities. Those who are not purely sanctified may be attracted by different features of the Lord, like the impersonal Brahmajyoti and localized Paramatma, but a pure devotee directly takes to the service of the Supreme Lord. There is a beautiful poem about Krishna in which it is clearly stated that any person who is engaged in the worship of demigods is most unintelligent. and cannot achieve at any time the supreme award of Krishna. The devotee in the beginning may sometimes fall from the standard, but still he should be considered superior to all other philosophers and yogis. One who always engages in Krishna consciousness should be understood to be a perfectly saintly person. His accidental non-devotional activities will diminish, and he will soon be situated without any doubt in complete perfection. The pure devotee has no actual chance to fall down, because the Supreme Godhead personally takes care of his pure devotees. Therefore, the intelligent person should take directly to the process of Krishna consciousness and happily live in this material world. He will eventually receive the supreme award of Krishna. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 9th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the most confidential knowledge. Om Jnanitivedandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmaditam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karidavachalam Pangam Langaite Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurundinitadanam Vancha Kalpadrubhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauda Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So read the, once again, translation. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So the worship of Krishna has been going on for a very long time. Oh, can't trace back how long it's been going on. And within India, it's very common, the worship of Krishna. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And about 50 years ago or so, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, here, we have a, here. He traveled to America first, so you could feel proud about that. Anyways, if you're wanting to feel proud about being born in America. He came to America on a cargo ship, and his idea was to spread the message of Krishna, spread the message of Bhagavad Gita. And that's exactly what he did. He spread the message of Bhagavad Gita. And to him, Krishna wasn't a mythological character, wasn't... Srila Prabhupada had full faith in Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when he came to New York, the main way he started his movement was through the chanting of Hare Krishna, like we were just chanting here, Hare Krishna. That was the main way he started, and then he opened a center in New York, and then there in San Francisco, and then all over the world. So within 12 years, there were 108 temples, and he had thousands of initiated or formal students. And as part of him establishing so many temples, he also established deities. Like you see here, we have our deities. There's, in the middle, Radha Giridhari. So Giridhari is another name for Krishna. Means one who lifts a Govardhan hill, actually with the left hand. But we could discuss that some other time. But it's a name for Krishna, and Radharani is his eternal consort. So in these temples all over the world, he established deities. Now, deities are very, again, as Srila Prabhupada makes the point in the purport, there's thousands of temples all over India. And when you walk into those temples, it's not just like there's 4 blank walls or something. Of course, they're very elaborate, the architecture, but when you walk in those temples, there's always a deity. And then people wonder, okay, what is this what's the purpose? What's the point behind deity worship? Why are there deities? Because within America, before Srila Prabhupada came, there were no deities. Now, you go to New York City, there's deities, Radha Krishna deities. You go to Colorado, there's Radha Krishna deities. You go to Boise, Idaho, there's Radha Krishna deities. You go to Los Angeles, there's Radha Krishna deities, and on and on and on. There's a lot of Radha Krishna deities now. What to speak of in devotees' homes, right? So the idea behind deity worship is that because we can't see God with our, Srila Prabhupada used the word blunt, material blunt senses, he appears to us in the form of a deity. And then someone may say, well, how is that possible? How is it possible that God manifests or appears to us in front of a deity, in the form of a deity? Because to the external, to people's vision, a deity is made out of what? Marble, and other materials. But the idea explained within the Vedic literature, scriptures, is that first of all, there's a description of what Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, looks like, which is very rare. In other words, in a lot of religions, they don't have a super clear conception of what God looks like. And in a lot of religions, there's an idea that, even within Hinduism, you could say, there's an idea that God is impersonal. And what does that mean, impersonal? It means, like, we're persons, right? We're all persons. So to be a person means we have a form, we have a name, we have activities. What else? Nama, guna. We have qualities. So we have qualities, we have a name, we have activities, we have a form. So similarly, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, also has a form and qualities and activities and a name. Krishna, many names. And he agrees to appear to us in the form of a deity so we could offer service. And as here it says, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, one should lower his head before the deity and engage his mind, his body and activities, everything. So bowing down before the deity, this is what's being brought up here. Now, of course, people who... Srila Prabhupada, when starting the Hare Krishna movement, he wasn't enforcing that people follow this rule, follow that rule, follow so many rules. But his followers, who became his followers, his disciples, they would see Srila Prabhupada bow down. So they would also bow down. They were following him. And we see this in many religions. There's some form of bowing down, which is helpful to develop and continue to be humble, right? So within India, with all these temples, you won't only find temples of Krishna. You'll find temples of so many other demigods. So, for example, you'll find temples where Lord Shiva is worshipped, you'll find temples where Durga is worshipped, and so many other gods. And they say there's how many? 33 billion or million? Anyway. Yeah. A lot. There's a lot of demigods. And people become confused. Which god to worship? Who should I worship? And this is, you could say, the difference between Hinduism and Krishna consciousness. Or you could say, yeah, anyways, we'll get more into that in a minute. But Krishna consciousness, like Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, this society is teaching how to be Krishna conscious, how to develop, how to awaken our Krishna consciousness. So a difference between Hinduism as people know it and follow it, practice it, is that within the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, we don't worship the demigods as supreme. Means we could offer respects, but we're not confusing them to be the supreme. And then there's also within the Hindu world, or within Hinduism, as people follow and practice it, is that they think that many people think that all the gods, they're on the equal level as God, just different forms. But as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, and as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a difference between Krishna and the demigods. And the demigods, it's actually a post. Like, for example, there's a demigod called Indra. So Indra is the king of heaven. And he's the one who helps manage the rain in lack of. He's in charge. So, but Indra, it's a temporary post. In other words, if somebody, a soul, becomes qualified, they could take the post of Indra. So in other words, it's not an eternal position that Indra holds. In other words, he's not supreme. So, under the umbrella of, do you think you two, Govardhan, and you can move right here? Just a little closer, please. Maybe you could move a little closer too, Anand, so I feel like I'm talking to somebody a little closer to me. It helps me. So I don't have to look so far out. What about you, Tapas? Can you come sit right here? Like closer than them? Here, you can sit right here. Please. Okay. Now I'm feeling a little better. All right, thank you. So under the umbrella of Hinduism, there's different groups. For example, you have Shaivites, those who worship Shiva, very common in South India especially. Now, who is Shiva? So the Brahma Samhita explains this. It's a book, Brahma Samhita. So it explains how milk can become yogurt. In other words, milk could become yogurt, but yogurt can't become milk. Now, what does that mean? That Krishna, you could say, takes the form of Shiva, in the sense of milk becoming yogurt. But in other words, but he doesn't. But Shiva can't become Krishna. To be more clear, there's Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then there's the jivas, us, the souls. And Shiva is in his own category. It's called Shiva Tattva. Tattva means truth. So he's in his own category. He's somewhere in the middle between the God category, or Vishnu Tattva, and the Jiva category, soul. So somewhere in the middle. So many people worship Shiva as supreme. So that's one group. And another group, they worship Durga, or Maya, Shiva's wife. It's another group. And another group are the Vaishnavas. So Vaishnavas means worshippers of Vishnu, or Krishna. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, it explains the book following the Bhagavad Gita, or after the Bhagavad Gita. It explains that Ete Changsa Kalapungsa Krishna Stu Bhagavan Swayam, that Krishna is Adi Purusham, the original person from whom everything and everyone emanates. So there's Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original person. And from Krishna, he expands into these different forms of Godhead, such as Vishnu, Ramchandra, these different forms, avatars. So people who are known as Vaishnavas, they may be worshippers of Ramchandra, they may be worshippers of Krishna, they may be worshippers of Vishnu. So within the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Hare Krishna movement, this particular temple and temples all over the world, we are followers of Krishna. And the difference, again, is that between Hinduism and followers of Krishna, or with Krishna consciousness, is that we don't worship the demigods. Because we understand from the Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures that the demigods, Hare Krishna, the demigods are servants of Krishna. They're not Krishna. So that's one difference, that we don't worship the demigods. So another difference between Hinduism and Krishna consciousness is that if you go to these universities throughout the world, and if you talk to a lot of Hindus about what their idea of the goal is, the goal of life or afterlife, they have a conception that the goal is not to become a servant of God, become a servant of Krishna, but practically speaking, it is to become Krishna. And they may not say it like that. They may not say, hey, I'm a Hindu and I want to become Krishna. But their understanding is that their souls, right, individual souls, okay, that's good. Hinduism and Krishna consciousness, or Vaishnavism, they have that in common. The principle that we're the soul, we're not the body. So that we agree with. Another thing we agree with is the principle of karma. What comes around goes around, action, reaction. Okay, we agree with. Another principle, the cycle of birth and death, means the souls are going, we're transmigrating. We're in this body, we're going to different bodies, right? Reincarnation. We agree with that. What we don't agree with is that we're all souls. Okay, we agree with that. But we're all souls, and the goal is to merge with the Supreme Soul. It means to merge with God, who is the Supreme Atman, means the Supreme Soul. And the goal is to merge with Him, or with the light. Conception. Which you go to a lot of universities, and they say that. The professors say, yes, this is the goal of Hinduism. They want to merge the soul, merging into God. Right? And the conception of God is a supreme light. Within Islam, you have a similar idea, specifically, not between actually, there's a few groups within Islam, but the less famous of the groups are the Sufis, right? The mystic followers of Islam, which the other groups don't like. Of course, whatever, one group doesn't like another group, but these two groups don't like Sufis. And the reason they don't like Sufis is because the Sufis, they have this idea that they're serving Allah, and then they're going to become Allah. They're going to merge. That's the idea. So therefore, these other followers of Islam, they don't like them. So the Srimad Bhagavatam explains that Vedanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajganam advyam brahmeti paramapmeti bhagavaneti shabhyate, that there's three aspects to the absolute truth. There's not one aspect, there's not two aspects, there's three aspects. And it's right here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the cream of all Vedic literatures, Srila Vyasadev's most important work. And what are the three aspects? One is Krishna, or God within everyone's hearts, right, directing us to go here and there based on our desires. One thing He's doing. Another aspect is this effulgence, this impersonal effulgence, this light emanating from Krishna's body. And the highest realization is Bhagavan Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a person. That's the highest realization. So again, the difference between most Hindus' conception and the conception of Vaishnavas, which are not really, we don't consider ourselves Hindus, is that the goal is different, to merge into God. We don't want to do that. We want to serve Krishna. We don't want to become Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada he commented on this word Hindu, because people, they see us dressed like this, and they see, on our forehead, and they think, oh, they're Hindus, right? There you go, they're the Hindus. American Christians, if you didn't notice, they don't dress like this. So they say Hindus, right? Now, Srila Prabhupada commented on this particular word, Hindu, and he said that you won't find this word Hindu in any of the Vedic scriptures. So it means the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, any book, you won't find the word Hindu. So then the question is, okay, where does it come from? And it comes from, Srila Prabhupada explains that followers of Islam, Muslims, they actually coined this term, because there's a river called Indus within India, West India, right? And he explains that they would pronounce the I like an H, and therefore became Hindu. And then they would refer to the followers of the Vedas as Hindus. That's where it came from. And it really caught on. I mean, it's all over the world, and that's what they're known as, right?
The river divided. Those on the other side were Hindus.
Yes. Yeah, one side Hindus and other side. So, but you could say, okay, we're known as Vaishnavas, followers of Krishna or Vishnu, but Also, Srila Prabhupada explained that we're followers of Sanatan Dharma. So what is Sanatan Dharma? So Sanatan Dharma, Sanatan means eternal, and Dharma means the essence of something. So for example, the essence of a table is to hold things. That's what it's made for. Now, if you put something on the table and the table collapses, falls apart, it's not really a table anymore. It needs to be fixed, and then it will become a table again. So it's not really performing the function of a table. So similarly, we all have a dharma. We all have we all have a dharma. So the question is, what is our dharma? What are we meant to be doing? And specifically, there's an eternal dharma, Sanatan Dharma. So that is to be serving Krishna. Jivara Surupoi Krishna Nityadas, that the Chaitanya, this book Chaitanya Charitamrita explains that we're all eternal servants of Krishna. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Saddha Kabanoi Shravanada Shuddha Chitte Kori Doi, that we're all eternal servants of Krishna, and this love for Krishna is eternally manifested within our hearts. And by the process of hearing and chanting about Krishna, Srila Prabhupada said, and not some politician, got to be careful with politics. By hearing and chanting about Krishna, our love for Krishna awakens. Or also, whatever, actresses or actors and people, I don't know why, but a lot of people worship actors and actresses. I have no reason why. I don't understand why. I mean, these people are a mess, like a lot of them, most of them. I don't know, most of them, but a lot of them. Most of them, actually all of them. I mean, if you hear on the news or you read somewhere, yeah, this one they're in and out of rehab, and this one's on their 10th marriage, and right, it's quite messy. They get in a lot of trouble, it seems. And people, I mean, okay, they know how to act, whatever. The girl knows how to act, Bollywood, Hollywood, whatever. The man knows how to act, whatever, Bollywood, Hollywood. They also have one in South Africa. They also have one in Africa. I forgot what it's called. It sounds like Hollywood, though. There's Hollywood, Bollywood, and they have one in Africa that sounds similar. I forgot, but so they may know how to act. They may know how to entertain people. They may be very handsome or beautiful, but do they really know what life's about? Do they really know the purpose of life? I mean, if you listen to some of these people, it's just like, it's scary, actually. What their conception of life is just like terrifying. It means it's spiritually dead. For example, I heard this, there was this, anyways, I don't have to say the name because, we want to think about Krishna, so I won't tell you the name. But there's a very popular Hollywood star, mega star. So many movies. I mean, when I was, 5 years old, he's making movies, still making movies. 25 years later, right? I'm getting a little gray hair now, but... But anyways, they gave him an interview, and they said, what do you think happens when you die? That's what they asked him. What do you think happens when you die? And he said, well, to tell the truth, I haven't really been much of a religious person, but, now I'm starting to get a little older, so I'm starting to rethink it a little bit, maybe there is something out there. And what he said yeah, maybe there's an afterlife, and he said the afterlife could be like, I don't know, maybe you're like hanging out at a bar or something, and, it's like, and that was his answer. I mean, that was his answer on public, television. Millions of people heard it. I mean, because you could say, oh, well, he's just joking around. It's just a funny answer. No, like, he doesn't know. And nor does he have conviction in anything. Nor does he know. Nor does he even, I mean, it's It's scary, actually. Hanging out at a bar. I mean, eternally you want to hang out at a bar? I mean, doesn't sound like heaven to me. Even in the religious world, I mean, excuse me, but a very famous Christian preacher within America, like super famous, millions of books sold and followers and everything. They asked him, "What's your concept of heaven?" And he said, "Well, when I get to heaven, I'm going to serve God for 100 years, and after that, I'm going to enjoy." That was his answer. It was a serious answer. Now, there's a problem with that, because there's serving God and then there's enjoying. So I said, yeah, I'm going to serve God and then I'm going to enjoy, right? It's like there's a problem there, because serving God is enjoyable. That is the enjoyment, not that it's separate. Just like if someone was to say, yeah, I'm going to go to the temple, I'm going to go to the church, I'm going to go to the mosque, and then after that I'm going to enjoy, by watching football or whatever. Super Bowl's coming up, so you want a Super Bowl or Harry Bowl, right? So there shouldn't be a difference between our worshiping God or our spiritual practices and our enjoyment. That should be the means of enjoyment. Another person, going back to the Hollywood people, this guy was also a huge megastar actor in Hollywood, still. He's a little younger than this other guy, but... So they asked him, what happens when you die? And he gave the answer, well, when you die, he said, everybody you leave behind is going to miss you. And then And then the announcer says, he stops for like 10 seconds, which is a long time on public television. He stops for 10 seconds. And then all the audience, they go, like when you see, when people see a cute dog or whatever, or something, I don't know. When you're in India, you see a cute cow or something. People, they go, the whole audience, like at the same time, oh, so cute, what a cute answer. And that answer went viral. I mean, people heard it all over. I mean, they were impressed. They said, oh yeah, so-and-so gave a profound answer to what happens at the time of death. And I was looking, I was like, okay, that's his profound answer, that people miss you? I mean, that's very sentimental, and it's complete common sense. I mean, if I was to tell you, yeah, it's always sunny in San Diego. It's like, okay, well, it's always sunny in that's common. I mean, that's common knowledge. That's common sense. So if I was to tell you, yeah, people are going to miss you. People are going to, the people you leave behind when you die, yeah, they're going to miss you. That's like, okay, tell me something I don't know. In other words, and that's his answer. What happens at the time of death. And also, that's not even answering the question. So we shouldn't see a difference between what is our spiritual practice is enjoyment. They should be seen in the same light. But we could see that, because I was mentioning how people, they worship these actors and actresses, and I said I don't know why. Because their lives are a mess. I mean, just like recently, someone told me that Miss America, which Miss America, it's an American competition. I don't know if they do it in other places of the world, probably, Fallen America. But first of all, the competition's strange. Philosophically, it's weird. But they have a competition in which a bunch of women, because it's Miss, a bunch of women they have a competition, and the competition is who's the most beautiful, right? So you have a bunch of women who enter the competition who don't get in, they don't make it, right? And then you get a certain number who do make it, means in the competition. And then amongst all the people who do make it in the competition, the actual competition, there's judges and so on who vote who is the most beautiful out of all of them. And depending on those, their opinions and what they think, they say, this is the most beautiful woman in America, right? In terms of those who've competed. So she was 2019 Miss America. I mean, that's not very long ago, 2021, 2000, right? It's only 2022. This was a few years ago. And someone told me that just some time ago, I'm sure some of you heard, if not all of you, but yeah, she just jumped out of a building, committed suicide in New York City, Manhattan. So obviously she had a hole in her heart, a void, something that could not be filled. It means she was suffering, despite being in that position of Miss America. So, and it came out what she wrote, or what she said, because these people, famous people and so on, a lot of the times they have a lot to say, right? I mean, in general, people have a lot to say, but anyway, she was saying how she was feeling, what she was thinking. And what she said something very interesting. She said, when I tell people I'm 30, which isn't very old, by the way. When I tell people I'm 30, sometimes I cringe. Means I feel uncomfortable telling them I'm 30. In other words, I'm embarrassed I'm 30. And then she commented on the beauty industry, the mainstream media industry, and she was saying how when these girls, they're Miss America or whatever, over time when they start becoming older, the media stops paying attention to them. Why? Because there's a bunch of other girls, who are younger than them and more attractive, and they're getting older. And you see that sometimes, like actresses, for example, or actors, whatever, that they stay in their homes. They don't want to go outside, right? They have a lot of gray hair and wrinkles, and they just hide away. So this, we would say, is ignorance. Because the body, that's what it does. It gets old. And I gave this example on Friday. I was speaking to a different group. And on Saturday, I was speaking to a different group. And Sunday, here, some of you were in those other groups, but most of you weren't. That if you have Tapas here, our man on the computer, if his jacket rips and his zipper breaks on the jacket and he becomes old, and he's not going to start crying about it, lamenting. I hope not, right? You're not going to do that, right? All right, good. So similarly, for people to lament, for people to be depressed, for people to cry, for people to commit suicide, on the basis of the body getting old, it's just very unfortunate and ignorant. So this is the beauty of Krishna consciousness, that it fully explains how, first of all, we're not the body, we're the soul, and the body does what it does. It gets old, etc. But it's not something for us to lament about, what to speak of commit suicide. So some time ago I gave a talk where I was explaining how through the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, it could solve a lot of the problems of the world. I gave the example of racism, because if everybody's seeing each other as souls, part and parcels of God, there's no racism. It means, oh, you have this color skin, I have that color, let's fight about it. Sometimes let's kill each other. But if we're all souls, that's gone, right? Fighting on the basis of religion, big thing, right? It's actually quite ironic because religion's supposed to be peaceful and all that, and religion's just fighting, killing each other. If people understood that we're all part and parcels of the same God, the supreme God, one God, then that would also be gone, right? Fighting amongst religions. So fighting amongst races, fighting amongst religions. And if people understood that they were a soul, if people actually followed the principles of Krishna consciousness and therefore derived happiness and weren't lamenting over the body, right, becoming old and this and that, or what to speak of, and taking in heavy intoxication. Many people, they take intoxication for enjoyment and then they expire, their bodies expire. So that would be gone. Suicide would be gone. At least one main cause of suicide being people don't want to, a lot of suicide is because people are unhappy. So that would be gone as well. So, in conclusion, Krishna is saying here, to think of him, become his devotee, offer obeisances, be absorbed in him, and surely you will come to him. And for people who identify with being Hindus, they should try to investigate what that actually means, because it's not like I'm a Hindu and like anything goes. It means any philosophy goes. They should try to investigate. And specifically what I mean by that is that if people want to claim to be Hindus, or devotees for that matter, of Krishna, they have to know what Bhagavad Gita says. They can't just say, hey, I'm a Hindu, I know what I'm talking about. But if we ask them, hey, have you read the Bhagavad Gita? They say no. Then how can you know what you're talking about? Oh, well, my grandfather told me, my grandmother told me. Okay, but you have to read the Bhagavad Gita. And same with devotee, people who are followers of Krishna, if they're claiming, oh, I'm a follower of Krishna, we have to know what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita by classes, by reading. Because this is actually just pride to think, oh, that was actually why Srila Prabhupada left India, actually. He was actually, in many ways, he was disgusted with the Indians. Because it's common, for whatever reasons, of course, but it's a symptom of pride to think, okay, I know Krishna. Krishna's not so easy to be known. First of all, I've read Bhagavad Gita, and if you haven't read the Bhagavad Gita, you definitely don't know Krishna. And even if you read the Bhagavad Gita, have you followed Krishna's instructions in the Bhagavad Gita? And if you haven't followed Krishna's instructions in the Bhagavad Gita, you definitely don't know Krishna. So it's not so easy to know Krishna. We have to read the Bhagavad Gita. Aside from reading the Bhagavad Gita, we have to follow the Bhagavad Gita. And even then, we can't claim we know Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not, Mr. Joe at our corporation, our boss or something, so easy to know. He's not an ordinary human being. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So such great personalities like Lord Brahma, those of you who know him, he claims he can't understand Krishna. And you know how many heads Brahma has? 4. And you know what his body's mostly made out of? Intelligence. He can't even understand Krishna. And we could say, yeah, we understand Krishna. So, if we claim to be Hindus, or if we claim to be followers of Krishna, that should mean something. If means we should really try to understand. And if we don't want to, and if we don't understand, and if we don't want to identify as Hindus or followers of Krishna, fine, we just don't identify. We say, I don't identify with anything. But to identify with something, we have to know, or else it's not so good. Okay, so I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions or comments on any of this? Yes, Dharmaraj Prabhu.
Disgusted with why he left India. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, because he saw that people in India, and I mean, this is not like a, what do you call? This is not like an Indian bashing session or something. By the way, I hope everybody's understanding that. But because Srila Prabhupada said, there's many statements actually by Srila Prabhupada, the founder of Charya, that actually somehow or other, Indians by nature, means those born in India, those, in the bodies of Indians, they have like spiritual desire, spiritual blood flowing through them. Just like even nowadays, you hold a big gathering, means religious gathering, where you speak about religious topics. Thousands of people show up. Anyways, there's many statements that he makes about the natural attraction Indians have towards religion, towards Krishna. But when Srila Prabhupada was in India, means before he came to America, he wasn't having so much results with the Indians, because he was trying to explain to them about Krishna consciousness, about surrendering to Krishna, about these different things, but they weren't taking it so seriously. Of course, at that time there were religious people, but somehow or other they weren't taking it seriously. And that happens. I mean, it's not that because one is Indian or one is born in India, it's a guarantee that one will be super religious or super pious. I mean, the biggest, baddest asuras also came from India, like, who was that? Hiranyakashipu, those of you who know him, right? So it's not a guarantee, and sometimes people go off track, like much of India's traditional culture, means dharmic culture, is, people there in India, a lot of them were trying to imitate America, the way they think and so on. So anyways, when Srila Prabhupada was there, before he came to America in '65, he was trying, and people weren't reciprocating. So therefore he came to America. And then when he came to America, people were very open, because he was dealing with Americans in America. He was dealing with Americans who, they didn't have this concept that, oh, hey, we know about Krishna, and we know what you're talking about. Okay, tell somebody else, right? We know what you're talking about. But but they were saying, actually, we don't know. We don't know Bhagavad Gita. We don't know about the demigods. We don't know about karma. Well, all these things we actually don't know, and therefore it was a clear slate. Just like, for example, if you're trying to learn guitar, and Govardhan here, Saffron man here, Govardhan, is trying to learn guitar. Now let's say Govardhan's been learning guitar for the last 5 years on his own. And Dharmaraj is, he hasn't picked up a guitar ever. So they both go to the music place, and where the guy's teaching guitar. And Dharmaraj is charged $50 a month, and Govardhan is charged $250 a month, right? Extra $200. So they say, "Oh, well, why is that?" Well, because the teacher says, well, Mr. Govardhan, I have to teach you everything you learned wrong. I have to reteach you. So it's more, you know. But Dharmaraj, you don't know, so it's easier. So in many ways, Srila Prabhupada coming to America was easier because people were open, people were accepting. People weren't in the mindset that I know, which is, I mean, even if somebody has some knowledge, even if they read the Bhagavad Gita, even if they know from their grandparents, which I'm not, I mean, I'm sure, you know, people have great-grandparents who are very religious and they did know something, right? I'm sure somebody's out there who has grandparents like that. But even if that's the case, to be in the mindset that we don't know is good. It's healthy. It's the basis of learning more. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna says, eventually he's saying, I don't want to fight Krishna because, you know, this, he gives so many reasons, I don't want to fight. And then eventually he goes, I'm confused. I don't know what to do. Please, Krishna, I'm surrendering to you. Please instruct me. I'm your disciple. And Krishna says, he chastises Arjuna. And he says, you're lamenting for that which is not worth lamenting, the physical body. Anyways, it's a whole thing. But the point is, Arjuna was humble. He was saying, Krishna, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Please instruct me. So we should try to follow Arjuna's footsteps in understanding the Bhagavad Gita and understand, if we want to understand Krishna, we should follow his footsteps and tell Krishna, I don't know. And Krishna spoke to Arjuna, and then there's so many disciples and spiritual masters speaking the message of Bhagavad Gita. And there's a reason why there's professors, and there's a reason why there's students. I'm sure many of you have your college degrees here, right? I'm sure some of you do. And there's a reason why you went to go talk to the professors, because they know the science of what they're talking about. You didn't go to the students and say, hey, what do you think about this book? Maybe you did that, but you're not going to get a degree like that. So there's people who have surrendered to Krishna. There's people who have studied the scripture for years. There's people who followed the scriptures for years. So in a sense, they're spiritual professors. So if we want to understand Krishna, we should go to them. And it may take some years to become a doctor. How long does that take? I don't know, 10 years, whatever, 50, depends what you're doing, what type of, you know. So just to understand that, that's just dealing with the body, which is very complex, right? If you actually start how it all works, and right? That's just with the body. So what to speak of if we're trying to understand the soul, what to speak if we're trying to understand Krishna, what to speak if we're trying to understand these spiritual topics, it will take years, actually. But we shouldn't be discouraged about that. I mean, people aren't discouraged, going, you know. So anyways, that's why Srila Prabhupada came to America. And yeah, he wasn't. And then, when he made some disciples here in America, he brought them back to India, all dressed up with their saffron clothes and their shaved heads, and also women went too in their saris. And when Srila Prabhupada went to India, all the Indians were just shocked. Oh my, this is amazing. We've never seen this before. Americans practicing Krishna consciousness, chanting Hare Krishna. And then it all started there. It started in America, Hare Krishna movement, Hare Krishna explosion. So many people were joining the Hare Krishna movement. Went to India, and first with Americans there. And then after the last 50 years, there's so many, there's like a temple popping up every year. Few temples every year in India, ISKCON temples. So yeah, that's good. You're welcome. Okay. Any other question or comment?
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, when I go on book distribution, it's very difficult to distribute books to the people from India. Because like you said, I know it. You know, my grandmother taught me that. But when I do ask them, have you read it? They say no. So, and also you spoke about them following the West, you know. And you could see that, the way they act, and also sometimes they're doing intoxication. And I'm thinking, you came from a very good country. You know? I come from the Philippines, and that is a bad place. I mean, so they're trying to imitate us, and we're trying to, you know, practice Krishna consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah, there was one, I was taking a walk, and, you know, we're in Pacific Beach, so there's a lot of bars. And this Indian young man, he came out of the bar, and he had a cup, you know, of beer. And he said, "Oh, hey, Haribol," which means, you know, chant names of God. He said, "Oh, hey, Haribol." And I said, "Oh, Hare Krishna." And we're talking. He's like, "Oh, yeah," he said, "I go to the Hare Krishna temple sometimes, and you know, this and that." And he said, "Oh, yeah, we're watching the football game today in the bar here." And he said, "Maybe you could like pray that, you know, my team wins." You know, that's what he said. And I was, "Oh, that's kind of interesting, you know." And we're talking, and he says, "Yeah, you know, I kind of feel embarrassed holding this beer, you know, talking to you about this, but, you know." Anyways, but yeah, it's if somebody has such a great culture and great ancestors, you know, and sages and saints, you know, coming from India and so on, and then if they kind of turn their back on all that and just be like a ordinary person, then yeah, it is actually sad, because we're not meant to worship, you know, Bollywood stars. That's a waste of time. Worship means give our attention, our focus, right? Our praise. We're not meant to do that. That's a waste of time. Because we worship them and we become like them. We follow them. And many of them, they don't stand for high moral principles. It's becoming more and more and more and more degraded in terms of moral principles. But we should follow people like Ramanujacharya, right? Great saints like him. Like in India, they just, South India, they just put up this huge, like 280 feet, maybe some of you saw that, 280 feet Murti statue of Ramanujacharya. It's the second, somebody said the second biggest in the world, sitting Murti or statue. Or some said it's the first, I'm not sure, depending on what authority you talk to. Huh? So this is great. It's a great acharya, great saint, Ramanujacharya. And people should try to follow him, because it leads to, you know, wonderful life and wonderful consciousness. But you follow these other people, and so yeah, we should try to, if we're coming from India, if we're identifying as followers of Krishna, not coming from India, whoever we are, we should try to make sure that who we're meditating on and who we're following is going to be ultimately the most beneficial for us and the world. Okay. All right. So I spoke tonight, and I'm not going to speak again this month. I'll speak again next month, maybe. So we'll have another few speakers. Actually, next Sunday, it's a very big festival here. It's called Nityananda Trayodasi. It's celebrating Lord Nityananda's appearance day. And we'll have a special feast, cooking, special arrangements, and a speaker. So yeah, it'll be a lot of transcendental, be a very transcendental uplifting. So if all of you could attend, that would be nice. All right, I think Tyler has a
Eyeball.